Okay. I'm actually here to like pitch a product to you, but it's it's free and open source. So the title of my presentation is Flump, and the subtitle is Keyframe Flash Animations on Your GPU. And my name is Tim Conkling, and until very recently, I was a programmer and game designer at Three Rings Design, which is a company right down the road from here, best known for Puzzle Pirates. And I recently left Three Rings, and I'm on my own. So Flump is a tool that consumes Flash animation files, .flas, and it outputs data that will play those movies on those Flash animations on GPUs. And so I'm going to start with like a very brief story of why I created Flump. So a number of years ago at Three Rings, I made this game called Corpsecraft, and it was a Flash game. And a few years after I created Corpsecraft, the first iPad was released, and it was pretty clear that like Corpsecraft was like a perfect game to appear on the iPad. It's like, you know, it's all it's very well suited to the touch screen, and it was, you know, this was like right after the iPad had come out, so there weren't that many games on the device. So essentially, like, I started the job of porting Corpsecraft from Flash to C++ on my own time at home, I brought it to Three Rings like once it was about halfway done, it turned into an official project there. And the biggest challenge, once it became a project, was converting all of the Flash animations into a GPU-friendly format. The first thing that the art director on the game and I tried was basically like, I wrote an exporter that took the frames of animations from the characters in the game and just output them as flipbook animations. We really quickly like exceeded our texture memory on the iPad. So the iPad once shipped with like, I think 256 megs of RAM, and as soon as you go over somewhere between 60 and 70 megs of RAM, the OS kills your app. And so if you have a lot of like large, you know, bitmaps running, it's a big problem. And also the fill rate of the iPad is not that great. And so if you have you know, a lot of like, again, giant bitmaps like being drawn on the screen, your performance is going to suffer. So our first stab at like porting this game to the iPad, like, involved us essentially like converting these, you know, these like really smooth vector animations into you know, bitmap-based flipbooks, and in order to have the animations running on the iPad, we had to run the character animations at such a low frame rate that we essentially lost all of the personality that made this game what it was. So like the artist John had created like these really nice animated Edward Gorey-esque characters, and they just weren't coming through. So so essentially, like after the like first aborted attempt to bring nice, you know, Flash animations to the GPU. I should back up a sec and say that, like, this was not a project that Three Rings like officially acknowledged. It was basically something that I started on my own, and I brought it in to the company when it was about halfway done. when I thought they wouldn't be able to say like, no, you can't do this. We won't pay you to do this. And so like we had a really, really small team and our resources were constrained. And it was pretty clear at this point that, like we were going to need a tool in order to bring nice 2D animations from Flash to, like a non-Flash platform. But because it wasn't an official project, we didn't have that. And so what this slide is demonstrating is that I hand-coded all of the 2D scene graph animations for this game in C++ in order to get the game on iPad. And this is this is retarded, but like this is one animation of one character at one orientation in one state. And we had, this was not a gigantic game, so we had like 5 characters, but they all had 8 facing directions, and they all had 4 states. And there was like a complete intro and outro movie that were several minutes long. And so in order to get all of this running on the iPad, John, the artist who lives and works in Philadelphia, would email me timings and like basically he would like write out prose, like move character arm L from 0 degrees to 20 degrees, from like 0.5 seconds to 0.7 seconds, and like I would convert that into code, but also like I would I would take his email and like run it through my head and convert it into code, but also like I was like our timings were in seconds and his timings were in like frames, and our angles were in radians and his angles were in degrees. Anyway, it was just like, it was clearly like this is like a really bad process, but the reason we did this was because we we were trying to squeeze this project in between other project streams, and we didn't have the time to create a tool. So so after CorpseCraft shipped on the iPad, we worked on another project, and shortly after that we worked on yet another project that was another iOS game that was going to be using another framework that didn't support keyframe animation. And the first thing that we wanted to do was to create like a reasonable pipeline for artists in Philadelphia to get their art into a game that was being designed and developed in San Francisco without going through the hell that we had gone through for CorpseCraft. So specifically, like we wanted a tool that would allow artists to use either Flash or a tool like Flash, because there are in fact no other tools that I know of that for doing like 2D keyframed scene graph animation that export to like whatever format you happen to be developing in. So what we did was create a tool that did exactly what I just said we needed it to do. We created a tool that essentially consumes Flash animation. So it consumes FLAs and SWIFTs. It outputs XML or JSON, or it's open source, so it outputs whatever format you want it to. But those are the formats it outputs right now. And it also outputs packed texture atlases, essentially, of the bitmaps that make up your animations, so that you can run Flash animation on a GPU in whichever language you happen to be developing in. So here, this is a slide just showing essentially like what. It's not really showing what's going on. It's more showing that we have the ability to take Flash animations and output them into texture atlases. Flump is it's an exporter tool, but it's also a collection of runtimes. We have a collection of runtimes written in a number of different languages. So basically, like the canonical Flump runtime is written in ActionScript, and it uses the Starling framework, which is basically like a GPU-friendly recreation of the Flash display list in ActionScript, but like since it's GPU-friendly, you can run your Flash code on an iPhone or an Android device without having a ridiculous loss in performance. There's an Objective-C runtime that we also wrote. And then there are a handful of other runtimes that are written in other languages. There's one in Hex, and there's one in Java, and there's one in Dart, which I don't even know what that language is, that other people have written. But the point is, this is all a big, friendly, open source project. And so this is almost my final slide. This slide is basically like this is the set of art assets that I'm using in the game prototype that I'm developing right now, and this is essentially like demonstrating that so this is an FLA, and all of my art assets go into this FLA. But since I am an indie programmer working on my own, I don't actually, I'm just stealing shit from Google Images and like ripping it from other existing games. And I have like no keyframe animations, but I'm still using Flump because it's very easy for me to just like throw an image into an FLA, run it through the Flump exporter, and all of a sudden like that image is in my game. I don't need to write any specific loading code or anything like that because the Flump runtime does that for me. So sorry, I realize I'm over. But anyway, Flump is free and open source. There are runtimes written in a bunch of different languages. It's all being developed on GitHub. It's being used in a number of different commercial and indie games, and it would be great if you use it. Thank you.